What's up, everybody? I am back with a new movie review for the holiday season or Halloween season, and today I'll be covering the first two Underworld films, which is honestly like the best ones. I don't care for the sequels that came after Underworld 2 because they were hot garbage. It's one of those things where kind of like the Fast and Furious. The more it goes on, the less of good quality they were getting. Uh, but yeah, man, I think it's not even a cult classic. I think a significant amount of people enjoy the first two Underworld films a great deal. Honestly, it's kind of like with like Batman Begins and Dark Knight. It's like when you watch one, you got to watch them all. Well, in this case, when you watch the first one, or if you want to watch the second one, you got to watch the first one too, then watch the second one. Like I said, the sequels after Evolution sucked. Uh, but man, the and of course this is definitely a product of the time because in the late 90s into the early 2000s we've been kind of inundated with the whole moody backdrop, character with long black trench coats, uh, brooding personality. uh, well, some argue the Matrix kicked it off, but I think Blade and Dark City kind of kicked it off. I think the I never, I like to say I never watched Dark City, but it was like a thing way before the Matrix. But the Matrix kind of popularized it for a good period of time. But yeah, Underworld fell into that category. I think it was like the last. Well, we still got movies with characters with long black trench coats that pops up here and there, but it's the aesthetic isn't as prevalent like it used to be. I think the Underworld series was probably the last remnants of that era that could actually get away with it. But I think we grew past it at a certain point. But you never know. Fashion is always comes back around, just like 70s wardrobes and like more recently 90s stuff. But who knows, maybe at some point down the line that whole long black dress coat, leather outfit kind of thing, that will probably make a huge comeback at some point. This is the first movie. It was directed by Len Wiseman, uh, and the story screenplay was written by Len as well as Danny McBride as well as Kevin Gavarro, who plays a role in this film, and he's usually that big black character with a deep voice like this. I don't know. I talk like this. I, I'm ready to take down the vampires. Yes. And honestly, the in this movie, I knew this character was in this, but I forgot there was another black character in, because Kevin plays a character on the werewolf side as like the right hand to the main werewolf leader or Lycan leader, while on the vampire side there's bald headed. Well, both of them are bald headed, but on the vampire side is the British black guy, who's pretty much like the weapons dude, and it's like, oh wow, they get one of each person of color, which I kind of am fine with, because it's just like you don't need, you get a couple of Asian guys here and there, usually on the well, I know there was one on the vampire side, but we didn't need to have like a whole plethora of races on each side. It's just like, yeah, it's fine. You don't even make a big deal of it. Yeah, sure. You get like I don't even want to use the word token, but we get like uh, uh, oh, let's throw in this like black guy in this particular role. That because if we like his performance, he might be a good fit for this particular outfit here. And both play their roles very well. Anyway, and by the way, Kevin acts because you would think this movie was based off of some kind of graphic novel. This is one of those rare occurrences where, after the success of Underworld, Kevin, I'm pretty sure Danny McBride as well, created a series of graphic comic books. Was it not Dark Horse? What was it? Dark Storm. Matter of fact, it kind of gets me in the vibe to like try to read some of this because I never read any of the Underworld comics. It's probably like filler, story beats that happen between. Well, there is a prequel movie set prior to the first Underworld film, and how the war between vampires and Lycans got started. But then there's a huge gap in time up until the point of the 2003 film, set in like a present day. The comics, I think, most of it, centers in between the gaps of the films. Which, like I said, I'm very curious to check out those comics. Never read them before. It'd be kind of interesting to see. Anyway, this stars, of course, Kate Beckinsale, who plays Celine, of the vampire death dealer. And honestly, this is I gotta say, one of her best roles. And I gotta mention here that Celine, in my opinion, I think a lot of people would agree, I think Celine from the Underworld films, even like the crappy ones, she is always the best one. And honestly, the character rose to like a cultural significance on darn near on the same level as like Tomb Raider, Lara Croft, because she is not only a cool character and a badass character, she's a fleshed out, layered character. I always push this where it's like nobody likes girl boss characters. It's just putting a girl in pants and expect her to be right and powerful, but no. She gets rescued. She hurts. She bleeds. She falters. She's wrong. A couple of times. She doubts herself every once in a while, but she overcomes all that stuff. That's what makes her so appealing. The fact that she has a hero's journey and she honors the formula. That's what, like, nobody likes girl bosses or Mary Sue's because they erode the whole formula. That's why there's a formula there in the first place. Not saying you got to stick to it rigidly, but it's the foundation that you have to build off of. You don't just toss it to the side or try to muck with it thinking you're smarter than how it was created, because that as humans allows us to endear ourselves to whatever character that we're following. I think like Celine follows the hero's journey to a T, and is perfectly well suited. Similar to how like Luke Skywalker is just like that hero's journey. So by at the end, we're rooting for her, and she can be badass too at the same time. She doesn't need to be perfect. You're not a misogynist if you make a girl uh, uh, stumble here and there or be wrong here and there. It's how she overcomes that makes her so endearing and long lasting. Celine is one of those characters that will stand the test of time, and I think a lot of women have cosplayed her for the longest time. She is a hugely popular character. I love this character. She is amazing. And Kate Beckinsale really like made this her own character. It's kind of like Ryan Reynolds with Deadpool. Kate Beckinsale is Celine. We got Scott Speedman as Michael Corvin, a medical student. Bill Nighy as Victor, the second most powerful vampire elder. We got Michael Sheen as Lucian, the leader of the Lycans. And honestly, like, this dude's an amazing actor, honestly. Because, I really watched Tron Legacy, and golly, just for even the small bits that he usually gets, he plays it so, like, well, he chews the scenery. You got Shane Broley as Craven, a vampire noble. Erwin Leder as Singe, a lichen scientist. Sophia Miles as Erica, vampire Corazon, who is infatuated with Craven. Wow, she was, in Transformers Age of Extinction? Oh, really? Robbie Gee as Khan, a vampire warrior who helps Celine. I'm pretty sure that's the black guy who's like the weapons dude in the Vampire Coven. Let me see. Okay, I'll make sure I got it right. Yeah, I got it right. Kevin Kevin Guevara as Ray's, like I said, the Lucius right hand man. Zita Gurog as Amelia, another vampire elder. And you got Wentworth Miller, who you might remember if you watched the CW DC TV shows. He, or at least the Flash, he was Captain Cold, which I completely forgot he was in this freaking film. This dude is like, even in the small bits, he was like really good, but we didn't like realize how good. I mean, he's been in other stuff that I've seen, but I think in the Flash as Captain Cold really kind of in my brain cinched it for me, like, oh, this dude is top notch. Because the first Flash season is stellar. The later ones that get like, you gotta pick your poison of good episodes here and there, but in his performance as Captain Cold, it's amazing. It's always a good time every time I see him as that role. He is Captain Cold to me. Anyway, this movie opens up in narration by Celine, who gives like a breakdown of death dealers and what she does, and the fact that the vampire clan has been warring with the Lycan clan for centuries, and they're at a point where the Lycans seemingly are non-existent, and they're trying to wipe out the last few remaining. However, she notices that as she's tracking down Rays and another Lycan who's following uh, this ordinary man, and a shootout happens in a subway where uh, she managed to kill a few werewolves and raise, and another one managed to take out one of each, one vampire each, until Celine discovers, well, now through her own eyes, where she heard voices, seemingly a whole hidden hideout filled with Lycans, and she's fearing like, oh, they've been gathering in numbers, and there might be a full-fledged battle, and especially since they got a lot more brazen by opening fire in view of the public. But of course, the vampires have a hard time believing her, especially Craven, who's pretty much running things under the orders of the elders, while there's supposed to be some kind of awakening that's happening pretty soon, where while Amelia, because there's 3 elders, one that's been around since like the Middle Ages, I guess, and 2 of them supposed to be in hibernation, while only one of them run things with maybe a subordinate, looking after other covenants in other places. But there's always one elder, running the show overall. They can't have 2 presidents or 3 presidents running things. So Amelia's pretty much been running things for a good long period of time, and the awakening is when, I guess, she goes to hibernation because I guess it's like a timetable, while one of the other members turn, which would be Marcus, because Marcus, Victor, and Amelia. It's supposed to be scheduled within a few days. Marcus is supposed to wake up via an elder. That's why it's a big ceremony, because an elder who's been running things over time, and as time passes and things change, all of her knowledge, because each vampire and werewolf, every time they bite someone and ingest their blood, all the memories and experience transfer, so they know what the other person had experienced and all their secrets, so there's no lies. So Amelia would have given her blood to Marcus, so he'll have all the information from her experience and over time and how things were governed and so on and so forth. Then she goes in hibernation. Then over next handful of centuries goes by. Then Marcus, in the next awakening, wakes up Victor, gives him his blood, all of his memories for that particular century, along with what was given to him from Amelia's experience, and around we go. That is typically like the order of how things were meant to go. Anyway, Celine is dismissed off rip by Craven, who's obsessed with her, want her as his bride, while we got Erica, who's more like gung ho about being at his side because she's super infatuated with him, but he ain't thinking about that girl at all. He it's probably like the like the rare occasion where you get to see in live action a man completely friend zoning a chick, and he does not consider her at all, despite her trying to, manipulate situations to her favor or helping him in any kind of way. He could care less. Uh, uh, because he's so into, well, he's into Celine more so because of her, I guess. I guess it's kind of like well, all three, I guess, because the whole unrequited love kind of situation, or just infatuation. She couldn't care less about him about as much as he could not care less about Erica. But on a bottom on top, there's an infatuation comes into play. Of course, Erica is not threatened by Celine. She respects her in a certain degree, but Celine is still in the way, and she just wants Celine not to kill her. I guess she wouldn't mind, but there is some level of friendship, which I kind of appreciate. It's like, okay, there's no fighting between us, like no pointless fighting. It's like, no, it's like, you know, I'll just like, I like her. I'm just going to try to, because she clearly knows that Celine ain't thinking about this guy, but he's thinking about her, and it's like, okay, I gotta, run interference somehow. Was there a thing that was kind of like a cool dynamic between these three characters that really not have been spoken about a lot, but it's just kind of interesting dynamic. But anyway, uh, Celine runs her investigation against Craven's orders because he believes, like, hey, I know I killed Lucian a long time ago. The lichens are all but extinct. It's not no reason for you to put yourself out there for no reason. It's no big deal. Really downplaying it. But through her investigation, she realized who the lichens was following, because she knows this ain't no normal werewolf feeding or even turning another person. This is completely out of the ordinary, especially since they were willing to open fire on view of the public, where we usually keep to the shadows with our fights. Something is causing the stakes to be raised. No pun intended. So she finds out who the doctor is, or at least this guy is. He's a not registered nurse, medical student, Michael Corvin, and she tracks down where he lives, but at the same time, Lucian, who is getting kind of irritated by his lackeys not getting this guy, or at the very least his blood, so they can test it, because the lichens are looking for something very specific. So at his apartment, Lucian ends up biting Michael, who not only get his blood, but because of the bite, caused the werewolf curse to be implemented. Celine managed to rescue him, and while running to the car and driving off, and there's like a cool moment where we see like this part of Michael Sheen's workout routine, maybe, because I love the shot of him chasing down that car, because it shows, like, the even though he's not transformed, the level of speed uh, a lot of these creatures will tend to have, will of course outrun a vehicle, or at least manage to catch up to one going at full speed. he managed to wound Celine before they gave him the slip. And of course, you know, this because of the blood loss, she ends up crashing the car, which Michael ends up saving her despite his injuries in the car crash, and patched her up. She ends up taking him back to the Vampire Coven, which upon seeing the wound, Erica immediately freaks out because she knows immediately, oh, this dude's been by a wolf. So Michael ends up escaping. Getting sick of Craven's, constant interference, she decides to, because she looks up to Victor, because Victor was the one who looked after her, because many centuries ago her family was killed by Lycans. That's why she has this bitter hatred towards their kind. And Victor turned her, and she's been a loyal warrior ever since. Um, she eventually tracks him down thanks to Erica kind of. Well, Celine wakes up Victor, gives her his blood with all what has transpired, because Victor's the only one who she seems like might understand her, but he ends up kind of being pissed because you disrupted the ritual. I'm not supposed to be waking up right now because it's Marcus's turn. But Celine, thanks to Erica, managed to give the slip, even though she's supposed to be on lockdown. She manages to find Michael after his friend, supposed friend and colleague, turned him over to police, who turns out to be working for Lucian. She takes him to one of the vampire hideouts where she kind of handcuffed him to one of the chairs. Of course, eventually, they get tracked down by some werewolves, one of them being the vampire scientist. And, of course, Celine ended up mowing them down, with leaving, coincidentally, the scientist alive, while Michael jumps out the window, lands perfectly because he is slowly but surely transforming. But he gets picked up by the cops. They inject him with some formula to slow down the transformation process long enough so they can gather his blood. And that's why he meets Lucian, because since Lucian was one that bit him, all his memories is passed on to Michael, who sees his past and how the war started. A long time ago, when I guess most of the elders was pretty much running things, because Victor had a daughter who was also a vampire, probably better, and her name was Sonia, and she fell in love with Lucian. Now, back then, Lucian, like all the Lycans around that time, were all enslaved by the vampires. Pretty much their bodyguards during the day. Of course, Lucian didn't harbor them any ill will, despite the fact that he was enslaved, man. But he fell in love with her and married her. Eventually, she got pregnant by him, even though you tend to forget that vampires are technically living corpses in a way. And somehow managed to get pregnant. Movie magic. Let's not think about too much. But Victor, upon learning this, thought it was a complete abomination for even them even being together, let alone conceiving a child. So, as punishment, he was chained up to be whipped as she was tied to a pole, uh, her forced to watch him get beaten while he was forced to watch her get, burnt alive via the sun in the same room. And of course, he eventually breaks out, takes the necklace that was given to her as his like sign of remembering her, and this pretty much kicked off the war between the Lycans and the vampires, because of course it would have been like an uprising because they got tired of being enslaved and treated like dog shit. No pun intended. So ever since then, there's always been like this massive war. Of course, the Lycans tend to have been for a while on the losing side of things until, as we learned from the scientists, that vampires and the Lycans share a common ancestor, the Corvinus bloodline, and of course, Corvinus ends up having three sons, I think. But one of them was bitten by a bat, and because it's an immortal bloodline, one was bitten by a bat, which was Marcus, being like the original vampire and the strongest one, and end up breeding vampires from that direct line. While the other, his twin brother, was bitten by a wolf, and he was a lot more, because we learned in the second film, the earliest werewolves were a lot more savage and could not transform back and forth. Eventually, the werewolves learn how to channel their rage and evolve to the point where they can change at will. But the older ones were a lot more brutish. And there was like a third brother where the regular human bloodline just like carried on forward, and of course over time it kind of diluted, but eventually it went down to Michael himself, where he is like a pure strain, where his blood is so unique where he can actually blend both species. And that's what Lucian is seeking after, is a unique thing to try to, because that's what he was hoping for with his child, and coming from his wife. It's like a unique thing that, which now I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, how is it? Of course, there's a clear war between vampires and werewolves, so of course there wouldn't have been no excuse for any intermingling. But you mean to tell me that throughout these many centuries, there has been any other occasion where one of them was a werewolf and the other was a vampire, and they didn't have any kind of even early on, before one of them was bitten, they didn't have any type of love connection at all, and there was no breeding throughout those many centuries, not once. It's kind of weird. But back then, Lucian's, and Sonya would have thought, okay, their union could, could allow a kind of like a peace treaty kind of situation, proving that they didn't have to be enemies. We come from the same bloodline in a sense, but of course it's diluted over time. But you know what I'm saying? You think about it, it's kind of like you're banging your distant cousin down several centuries. But it's not as icky anymore. But it's just that, okay, now he, through science, he's trying to recreate that, something that it was initially was done so naturally, now is less likely to happen, I guess, in his eyes. So, okay, we gonna find the direct bloodline, that hasn't been tainted by neither vampire nor werewolf. So that way we can, who's come from the Corvinus bloodline. Now we can just, test it out and mix it all, because you tried through several other people who have the same kind of ancestry, but none of it, meshed well. The blood didn't mesh well. So we find out that Michael's blood is perfect, storm. So, like I said, I think Michael Sheen's, next to Kate Beckinsale and Bill Nighy, amazing performance. Probably the only one that actually smiles in this, because there's no jokes in this. I'm not saying I need to have like a joke marathon here, but it's like a lot of this is kind of very serious, but it's nice to have add a little bit of levity here and there. But we later find out that Craven has been working with Lucian this whole time, because when he was supposed to deal the death blow a long time ago to take out Lucian, he didn't, because he was power hungry. He saw himself supposed to be leading the coven the way he wants to. So he worked with Lucian in order to systematically take out these elders, pretty much laying the groundwork where it was the right time. So he orchestrated the death of the Amelia and her guards that's supposed to be arriving in for the awakening. Turns out they completely murdered them, because upon agreement, with like a peace treaty essentially, Lucian will help take out the other elders, leaving Craven to be the one running the show in totality. And of course, Craven will betray anybody, anytime, for any reason at all. The lichen scientist explains all this to Victor, who then come to realize, Craven has been lying to us this whole time. And so they decide, okay, we're going to finish this off right here and now. He kills the scientist, and him and Celine, it takes, the entire coven of vampires, the bulk of which has not been doing nothing but just lounging around, sipping blood the whole entire time, looking like they're on the cover of Vogue. They take the bulk of their forces to the Lycan lair to try to wipe them out, and Lucian as well as Marcus, all in one fell swoop. Even though Celine, is gone fond of Michael, and he isn't responsible for any of this. This wasn't his fight. She feels bad. So they all go down to the hideout. Of course, Craven betrays Lucian, shoots him with silver bullets, but it didn't kill him right away. And Celine goes down and rescues Michael while the other werewolves fight the vampires. And here's one of my other kind of cons I have about this film. This is a fight between vampires and werewolves. Now, of course, it makes sense that there will be some that wielding weapons that have elements of each other's weaknesses for them to exploit to take them down permanently. However, there's not much of, because these things have fangs and claws, and uh, you still get that a fair amount, but not enough. That these creatures are not known for using guns. Sure, maybe an occasional blade or two, but it's just like you expect more teeth and claw action here. Uh, of course, Reyes gets killed by the Elder, um, while Craven's trying to slip past everybody because he knows the jig is up. But after he shoots uh, Michael with the several bullets and he's lying there practically about to die, uh, uh, Lucian tells Celine after he witnesses her and Michael making out, which is another comment I have about this film. It did not feel earned in this. I don't know. They probably should have set something up much earlier to warrant this level of attraction. But he then concludes like, oh, this is a situation playing out, but kind of in reverse. And so he encourages her to bite him, even though, like, in the past, nobody was ever survive a bite from both species because they will end up dying. But this is a unique situation because she comes to understand, what they was after him for. He was pretty much like a walking MacGuffin. He has a unique bloodline. So, unlike other people, he would be in a unique position to take on both traits. Now, of course, this is way before he permanently turns into a werewolf. Otherwise, it would have been like pointless. Because they, thanks to the serum they injected him with, they pretty much halted the transformation for a little bit longer. So he's still relatively, transformations. So since Lucian's already bit him, Celine bit Michael as well. And so now they're now both viruses are just swirling into his bloodline. And of course, Craven makes his escape while Victor comes completely disgusted about what he's seeing until like she puts it in his face about him lying to her all these years, because it turns out, according to Craven, who was there at the time when Celine's family was killed, he kept that secret to himself, but he's like, F it, I can tell you what really went down. The werewolves wasn't the ones who murdered your family. It was Victor. He tends to go on these little benders, and he just happened to come across you. Well, not happened. There was like a purpose, but we'll find out in the sequel, because that whole necklace thing was, commissioned to be built to be a lock, or a key to the prison, which will come to fruition in the sequel. He killed off the family to leave no witnesses about this key and its origin, as well as the prison, all that stuff that he commissioned Celine's father to build. He slaughtered the entire family until he got to Celine, and since Celine reminded him of so much of his daughter, he could not bring himself to complete the task, so he decides to lie to her, say like it was the werewolves. He bites her, transforms her, and embraces her as his own. And of course, Victor claims like, oh, I love my daughter, but what was going on inside her and the love she was displaying about this werewolf, it would have disrupted everything. It was blasphemous, all that stuff. So he then proceeds to try to take out Michael, but in a unique fashion, because we've never seen this kind of thing before. Makes this movie very unique. We get to see a werepire, a werewolf vampire hybrid, which probably would have been something that Sonya and Lucian probably would have had initially, naturally, until things were disrupted. So this guy, now I I'm in between of loving and hating the look, because it's a unique thing. You don't know what a werepire will look like in combination, and I guess this would probably been like the closest we ever would have gotten to how in a human brain these two things would mesh well. So yes, of course, it is just like a slenderly muscular blue-colored body with like big black eyes. It's just like a, and of course the fangs and the ears, but and then of course the claws. But it's just like all the strengths of a vampire and a werewolf, but none of the weaknesses. Of course, he still potentially can be killed, but it takes a lot more than even what it would take to kill a vampire and a werewolf. And since Michael doesn't have none of the natural weaknesses of either species, it'll take a lot more, like maybe cutting off the head, or even bleeding him dry, or the fact that he wouldn't feed. Then he will be weakened and potentially able to be killed. But there's never been one like this before, so we don't know the extent of his capabilities. But this fight scene is amazing, because this is an elder vampire who's way more powerful than your average vampire, and he is getting like outclassed by this new creature. But I also love the fact that despite not dealing with something like this before, he is not backing down, and you see the snarling and clawing and fighting, and just like it's just an amazing feat. But eventually Victor gets the upper hand. Celine gets Victor's sword and decapitates him, and you see like werewolves that's still roaming around are slowly backing away. But then the movie ends with Michael and Celine running away together, realizing they'll be hunted by both werewolves and vampires. And then of course there's the end credits where the blood from the scientist is still leaking, so coincidentally near the chamber where the body of Marcus is lying. And that's where the movie ends. Now, like I said, this movie is really good. The whole entire look of it all is super dope. Even though it looks like, the series of movies look like the color blue kind of ruled the world for a good period of time. But man, it's still a fun ride, and the story is, pretty good. There's a few stuff that I mentioned that didn't work well, at least for me. However, overall, it's still like an amazing good time. It was a great movie, great original movie, and I'm so glad that the studios like took a chance on it. We don't get much of that anymore in Hollywood, where they take chances on original ideas. And of course, there's also like a double-edged sword with that. Even when they do take a risk on something and greenlit sequels, they almost always tend to run it into the ground, but they're looking for all it's worth instead of like nurturing it healthily, so it can be like a big oak tree that sustained itself for a good period of time because it was took proper care. But in any case, I love this film. It's a great film. I'm glad revisit it after all this time because I pop it in every once in a blue moon. But man, this is it should be like a Halloween staple to watch every Halloween season. Especially you're dealing with a vampire and werewolf movie. Uh, Rarely get like something like that and it being cool, without it looking like something like Twilight. Anyway, I will see you all in a few minutes as I cover the sequel, Evolution. So yeah, take care and like this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of the Underworld franchise. And do you actually like the movies that came after Evolution? Because I really do not personally. It has completely missed all the marks of what made the first two films really good. But anyway, I will see you all soon. Take care. Peace.